Have you ever heard of an organization calling themselves the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, or the CCHR for short? From the mission statement on their website, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, is a non-profit public benefit organization that investigates and exposes psychiatric violations of human rights. It works shoulder to shoulder with like-minded groups and individuals who share a common purpose to clean up the field of mental health. It shall continue to do so until abusive and coercive practices committed under the guise of mental health are eradicated and human rights and dignity are returned to all. Sounds like a group devoted to a noble and just cause, doesn't it? But there is something more sinister to be found behind the human rights facade. The purpose of this video is not to defend ruthless drug companies or any doctors guilty of malpractice or negligence. There are some things that are simply indefensible. And the CCHR's line of denying the very existence of mental disease is among them. This denial stems from 5 alleged facts, deemed important enough that these 5 facts were repeated verbatim twice in the CCHR's booklet. Yet no mental diseases have ever been proven to medically exist. Oh really? A small note here. Whenever someone claims that something hasn't been proven by science, they show that they know little about science and even less about the scientific method. No one would doubt the existence of gravity, but no one has actually scientifically proven that gravity exists. Proof is not a concept in science. There is only what you can back up with evidence. And it is here that the CCHR falls at the first hurdle. There are many psychiatry journals. The website for the publisher Elsevier alone links to 95 peer-reviewed psychiatry research journals, many of which have been publishing research on psychiatry for decades. That's a hell of a lot of empirical evidence that the CCHR is ignoring. We mustn't forget the ever-increasing scientific knowledge from other fields also, such as neurobiology for example. It begins to become clear that denying the existence of mental illness is a completely indefensible position in light of the over 5 decades of scientific and medical evidence to the contrary. I think the body of scientific research batters the not proven diseases claim out of the ballpark, but let me illustrate just how wrong the CCHR is with reference to a specific example, in this case schizophrenia. An overview on the state of schizophrenia research was published earlier this year. Founded on a body of over 50,000 research articles, this paper attempts to compile the known facts discovered about schizophrenia and to help focus future research into the disease. Future research that will bring tangible benefits to sufferers of this disease, which is something the CCHR could only hope to aspire to. Never establish the cause of. This is the typical of the disingenuous language employed by the CCHR. There are many types of cancers whose causes are unknown. The cause of Alzheimer's is still a mystery. Are these diseases any less of a disease as a result? Of course not. Whenever a person asserts that a theory could be in any way comparable to a fact, they betray their lack of scientific literacy. But, unfortunately, the CCHR's misunderstanding of the chemical imbalance hypothesis appears to reflect the norm rather than the exception, with many media outlets and drugs companies promulgating this misunderstanding. To grossly oversimplify the matter, the majority of public confusion seems to stem from misuse of the words causation and correlation. There is a wealth of scientific evidence that varying levels of neurotransmitters correlate with mental disorders. For example, depression sufferers tend to have low levels of serotonin. Note that low serotonin correlates with depression. It does not cause it. To ignore this distinction is to ignore the scientific consensus and set up a straw man. Scaremongering is the CCHR's MO, and deceit is its method of delivery. The brain is an organ just like your heart, your liver or your lungs. And just like any other bodily organ, it can break down and suffer from its own kinks, and need a little help on the road to recovery. There are no guarantees and no quick fixes in any medicinal practice, and psychiatry is no different in this respect. There is a lot of stigma associated with mental illness, and it is both irresponsible and morally reprehensible for the CCHR to spread their disinformation under the guise of a human rights organization. It is somewhat sobering to read the CCHR's disclaimer from their IRIS website. None of it constitutes medical advice. Indeed, given the body of medical and scientific evidence contradicting the CCHR's position here, the question of why are they doing this has to be raised. And the answer is best summed up by Jeffrey Schaler.
The controversy regarding the myth of mental illness and psychiatry is not about science or medicine, it's about power.
But of course, why would science or medicine have anything to do with the diagnosis or treatment of a human condition? Unfortunately, the CCHR is very adept at spreading its misinformation. A recent batch of leaked emails from the CCHR has shown the extent of their misinformation campaign. They orchestrate leaf campaigns, which involves sending barrages of letters and emails in response to articles featured in national newspapers. The intention is to fabricate the perception of public outcry and to drown out legitimate comment in the sea of their own making. According to these leaked emails, Teen Screen, a program dedicated to raising awareness of suicide in teens, was a particular target of choice. Indeed, to generate an angry response, the Leaf coordinator, Doyle Mills, seemingly wasn't adverse to lying in order to get it. In this email, Doyle lies about the contents of the Tampa Tribune's article, telling his sheep followers that it discussed lobotomies. The article was actually about the Teen Screen program, with a parent commenting on the suicide of their 16-year-old son and how such a program would be a wonderful resource to prevent suicide among teens. But why? Why do the CCHR have such an incessant and irrational hatred of the field of psychiatry? The answer to that becomes clear when you realise that the CCHR is a front group of the cult of Scientology, being co-founded by them in 1969. This relationship with the cult is exemplified throughout the emails, with one email going so far as to state, "In your letter, do not mention Scientology or religion." Yep, that's right. The CCHR's position isn't scientific, it's Scientological. Certain things are now beginning to make sense.
Care about Brooke Shields, because I think here's a woman who's incredibly talented. You look at where's her career gone. It has helped her. It is, when someone says that it's helped them, it's cope. It didn't cure anything. There's no science. There's nothing that can cure them whatsoever. It's like when someone goes
she
home,
lost her career.
Well, you look at people. Look, is she happy? Is she really happy?
She said she wasn't, and through the help of the drugs, the exercise, she's off the drugs now.
She doesn't know what these drugs are, and for her to promote it is irresponsible.
Brooke has responded by stating, "Once we admit that postpartum is a serious medical condition, then the treatment becomes more available and socially acceptable. With a doctor's care, I have since tapered off the medication, but without it, I wouldn't have become the loving parent I am today." The cult's predisposition against psychiatry appears to stem from two sources. Mostly from the cult's founder L. Ron Hubbard, who frequently wrote defamatory material on psychiatry, and secondly from a curious competition that psychiatry poses to Scientology. To quote from a 1967 FBI letter, he wrote a book on Dianetics which appears to be a method of practicing psychiatry without having the required medical training. The cult is unalterably opposed as a matter of religious belief to the practice of psychiatry, going so far as to require legal waivers from members to dissuade them from seeking psychiatric help. This irrationality can have severe and tragic consequences, as it did for Elli Perkins, who, in 2003, was stabbed 77 times by her schizophrenic son, whom she prevented from receiving the required psychiatric help because of her Scientology beliefs. Irrational? Yes. Scientifically unfounded? Absolutely. Harmless? No.